Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today I'm here with my good friend Anna. She is the core contributor of CoW Dao. Before we get too deep into CoW Dao, give us a brief background into yourself. How did you get into this crypto world?
Sure, I'm super happy to be here. I actually had a bit of a different journey. Essentially, I started working for the United Nations as data analyst, and then as part of my department, they were looking into innovations, and I created like some sort of like series of educational content about blockchain. That kind of got me hooked. I was living in New York back at the time, and so we started attending a few of Ethereum meetups in New York City. And yeah, slowly started to read up more and more about it, and then was really curious to change gears also because the United Nations can be quite inefficient sometimes. And I wanted to have like work on something more impactful, so I shifted gears and joined Gnosis back in 2017.
So you worked for, now is it still called Gnosis or is it Safe? I never know the exact distinction that they use.
So okay, what happened is Gnosis still exists, but Gnosis essentially was the innovator of a lot of different cool products. And at some point, some of those products spun out. So CoW Protocol actually was the first one to spin out of Gnosis. Then the Safe followed with the Self multisig wallet. Then also now Karpatki, the treasury management team, also spun off. And yeah, so essentially you still have Gnosis Chain, which is Gnosis, and you have Gnosis Pay, which is Gnosis, but a lot of the other projects, they spun out and became independent.
Got it. Yeah, because I was writing dev docs for a company that was doing like unified accounts and intents, and I was looking at their documentation a lot, and I was like, I see Gnosis, I see Safe. I never quite knew the origin of that. So talk to us a little bit about how you got introduced to CoW, or how you guys started that.
Yeah, and that actually is very much related to this like background in Gnosis, because Gnosis initially back in 2017 was focusing on prediction markets. So basically markets who work under the assumption that you can crowdsource knowledge. So for example, now with the US elections coming up, a popular prediction market could be who's going to win, Kamala or Trump. And then people would invest in the market that they believe is representing the correct outcome. And then the issue is you're creating all these like new asset tokens. You have an outcome token for Kamala to win, another one for Donald Trump to win. And the problem is with these like markets, you would create hundreds of those markets, and so thousands of those different outcome tokens. But where do you have the liquidity to trade these? Like on a normal traditional order book, there wouldn't be sufficient liquidity to trade those tokens back and forth. So this is how we started to look into batch auctions, which allows you to essentially take a whole basket full of different assets and still match them against each other. So not necessarily all tokens A to B and B to A, but you can now also think of a concept where, okay, maybe somebody wants to sell token A for token B, and somebody else wants to sell token B for token C, and someone else token C for token A. And so you can match them all together in like a bigger complex ring trade. So essentially, yeah, we were looking into ways of providing the possibility to settle more complex trades, to like in a increasingly increased fragmented liquidity market, to like bring all this fragmented liquidity back together and like find an efficient way to trade those different asset kinds against each other. So we started looking into batching. We first worked on like multiple different products that are all were already looking into batching, but like didn't have the best user experience. And then we finally ended on building what is today called Protocol. And so when we were launching that, we were actually still part of Gnosis. And it was, to be honest, I think more successful than we initially hoped it would be, just because we had like two other products that we had previously launched that got some adoption, but it wasn't like mind blowing. It was like a few people used it, but it wasn't anything like to really revolutionize the market. And then with CoW Protocol, the day one of being live, there was like a lot of tension on it. I think partially, potentially also because of the name, because it's a little provocative, it's a little bit more memey. I think that's what we were missing before. We were always very serious, but not so much on the meme side of things. We got a lot of tension and then decided, okay, what are the next steps? How can we actually make this successful? So we sat down with the founders of Gnosis and then had started having discussions about taking CoW Protocol out and become independent. So within like 3/4 or so of a year, we actually then launched CoW Dao, which was launched by a vote of Gnosis token holders. So Gnosis DAO essentially had a vote, do we want to launch CoW Dao, yes or no? And then a lot of people participated in the vote and decided, yes, it's the best decision to make this project independent. And we took about 15 core contributors from Gnosis who then fully focus on CoW Protocol, and since then have also built up the team around it a bit more.
Yeah, it's a very exciting project. Now, for people, let's imagine somebody's coming here today. They've never heard of CoW before. One, explain what the name means, because it's not just, moo, what you'd see in green pastures. Talk to us about what the name means and some of the innovations you guys have brought forth to the market.
Yeah, perfect. So essentially, exactly, it's not just the moo. The moo is just the added plus. But it does stand for coincidence of ones. And this is essentially what I explained before with the batching. You are now able to trade different trade transactions peer-to-peer. So essentially, you can directly match different user orders together rather than each of them individually matching against on-chain liquidity. You can match them against each other, and this leads to a lot of price benefits for users, reduce gas costs, reduce fees that they would have to pay otherwise on the on-chain pool, and also reduce price impact. And this is essentially this core feature of CoW Protocol that still until this day nobody else has managed to copy in the same way. The coincidence of ones are really so core to our protocol that we decided, okay, let's make this part of our name. Let's put it there as an acronym.
And then talk to us a little bit about like the life of a transaction, because we talked a little bit about this batching. Let's say, if we want to use the prediction market, or we can use some other example. Let's say I want to bet that, I'll take the contrarian take that Kamala is actually going to win the election. And I come into CoW. Talk to us a little bit about like the point at which like I kind of put in my intent or my goal, and it gets like federated into the solver network. Talk to us a little bit about that whole process.
Perfect. Yeah, this is also where CoW Protocol is different to like more traditional DEXs. In more traditional DEXs, you just craft a normal on-chain transaction. You decide exactly what your parameters are. You put it on-chain, and it lands immediately in the mempool and then gets executed if the price conditions are still met. On CoW Protocol, it's a bit different. We give the user the possibility to just sign the intent. So they will just inform the protocol what is the sell token, what is the buy token, and at what price point are they willing to sell in worst case scenario. So then this order ends in our order book, which is connected to a competition of solvers. Solvers are third parties that are really optimizing and specialized in on-chain execution. They have all sorts of on-chain liquidity integrated, so they're connected to all the likes you would know, like not just Uniswap, Balancer, Curve. They can also have market maker integrations. They can actually also integrate other DEX aggregators, so they can exactly see if I was to channel this route via Van Inch, via Paraswap, via 0x, what route would they be taking? So they can also take those into consideration to see if like really have like the best possible path detection. And then these solvers, they compete with each other. So each of them would submit a score. And the score is essentially categorized based on which of the scores is maximizing the surplus, the benefit, the value that in the end ends in the user's pocket. So our solver competition currently consists about 25 solvers who essentially all look at, okay, these are the different orders that are in the order book. My order would be in the order book, but most likely also the order of a few other people. So here again, solvers have the opportunity to check, is it possible, like Anna is selling the Kamala outcome token and she wants to buy the Trump token. And no political statements here, this was just an example. But she wants to buy the other outcome token, and then they can see if somebody else is in the order book who wants to do the exact opposite trade, and then they can also match these two trades together. And they will propose a score to the CoW protocol. The CoW protocol then selects, okay, what was the best score for the user? The solver that has the best score is the one who then gets to execute the transaction on chain. And yeah, the benefit here really is that multiple things. One is that it really helps to protect the user, because a lot of the users, they are not super aware of like what are the dangers of executing transactions on chain. For example, MEV is like this big buzzword that is already getting a little bit more technical maybe, but it's like the value that professional arbitrageurs, professional searchers, etc., can take away from you. Solvers, our network of solvers, essentially, they're really specialized in like avoiding these scenarios of they submit their transaction in a safe way that the user order cannot be sandwiched or front run. And that is one benefit that they add. The benefit is that they can batch your orders, so they can find more efficient routes for you. They generally do like a whole on-chain liquidity comparison, can split up your trades across all possible different ways. And then there's a bunch of other benefits, but I think those are the main ones.
Yeah, and for people that may get confused with all like the DEX terminology, the one way I like to think about it is, let's say I just want to get to the other side of town or to a restaurant in town. I might submit in an intent like, hey, I want to go to that restaurant, and then multiple different like mapping protocols like Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps might all compete to find the best route, and then I'll go pick whatever app that is. So you can think of the execution that way. And for the MEV attacks, essentially this is like, because you guys don't put the transaction immediately in the mempool, other people can't see it and therefore front run it. Is that essentially the what you guys do for MEV protection?
Yeah, there's multiple things. One is, it first goes to the solver competition where they batch different orders together. And then the solvers also submit the transaction via MEV blocker, which is essentially this separate, more private mempool that directly lands the transactions on the block. So there's not previously visible by other searchers to like try to manipulate your transactions.
Yeah, it's always very interesting. I used to work for a company that did liquidity for DEXs, so like off-chain market makers. People can go back to the natives episode, and if they're very interested in intents, they can go back to the episode for Enzo, and I believe maybe Mantra. I think they can go back to, or Mantis, I believe was it. But let's talk a little bit about the MetaDEX aggregation. So what does that mean? What can users kind of understand from there?
So I think the very classical DEX is essentially an AMM, right? Like Uniswap, where the user goes to, and they will always trade against the liquidity of this particular DEX. The issue is, or why this might not always be the best case scenario, is that liquidity is fragmented. So it might be that there is a medium-sized pool of whatever ETH, USDC on Uniswap, and then there's more liquidity on Balancer or on Curve or on SushiSwap or wherever. So if you do a small trade like $10, $100, it probably won't make a difference. But if you do larger trades, you would have a price impact. So essentially, this is also what you always see when you go to the UI, right? It shows you, usually, at least if the product has good UX, it will show you, oh, your price impact is X%. Meaning you get an X% worse price if you execute such a large order, because you're significantly changing the liquidity provision in the underlying AMM. So DEX aggregators are there to fix this by being able to split your trade. So they would see, okay, there's a lot of liquidity on Uniswap and there's a lot of liquidity on SushiSwap. So instead of executing 100% on the trade on Uniswap, let me split this and potentially submit 60% to the Uniswap pool and 40% of the trade to the SushiSwap pool, proportionally to whatever like the pool size is, and hence provide the user a better price. And so so AMMs were like the first innovation of DEXs on Ethereum, and then DEX aggregators kind of like the more sophisticated next level that allows specifically users that have larger trade sizes to make more clever decisions or like take better routes that offer them better prices.
And then talk to them a little bit about like how you guys were able to build CoW protocol, because you obviously brought together, you know, several innovations. Talk to us a little bit about like some of the technical components. It seems like one, you had to build out the decentralized solver network unless you push that out to another company. You obviously had to build the like intents engine. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things you guys have had to build and what's on the roadmap.
Yeah, so the solver network was something that at the beginning we were a bit skeptical how quickly we would find adoption, because it's also a little bit of this chicken and egg problem of is how do you get somebody external excited and hooked to build something very complex, mathematically heavy, that they don't know yet what the return on the investment is going to be. But it was, I think, over 2 years ago at this point at East Amsterdam, where we were hosting a workshop. And there was, for some reason, quite a lot of interest in it. And then immediately 2-3 different people started building their own solvers. And of course, at the beginning, it was like not as sophisticated yet. For example, like something very easy to get into this is like to just take the API of 1inch, Parasub 0x, put them all together, and like always decide, okay, whichever one of the 3 APIs returns the best value for the user, let me submit the trade there. Obviously, you wouldn't be competitive with this because the solver network we have is much more sophisticated, but that was a good starting point to get people like look into it and how it works. And yeah, people were really excited, and then we also launched incentives that are since then rewarding solvers for successfully executing transactions on chain, and so that network really grew. We were doing at the beginning, I would say, maybe a bit of a catch-up game because other DEXs were already live, so we were adding a few features that on other DEXs already existed, for example, limit orders. However, we always try to improve on the experience that other DEXs would offer. So in the case of limit orders, what happens usually is you get executed at exactly your limit order execution price that you decided on. And on CoW protocol, leveraging these intents that we are using allows us to often actually provide an even better price for the user. So solvers are forced by the protocol they have to stick to the limit price of the user, obviously, but they have the opportunity to provide in surplus above this. So whereas limit orders everywhere else are always executed at the limit price, on CoW protocol, if you're matched in a batch against somebody else, if the solver finds a price on chain where an on-chain price pool where the price is already more favorable than what the user wanted, the user gets more than the limit price. Then we added programmatic orders, which essentially allows protocols to leverage smart contracts to automatically schedule and craft transactions that will be automatically executed on CoW protocol. Again, this is leveraging our intent-based system of solvers, because think about it, like usually you need to, when you send a transaction, you want to know exactly what is the price point right now of my transaction to make sure that you are not being screwed by somebody else who's extracting value from you. If you, for example, were willing to sell, if you set up an ETH order now and you say, I'm willing to sell my ETH for 2,000 in a week from now, but in a week from now, the ETH price has increased again to 3,000, you're like, I shouldn't have automated this trade. But with CoW Protocol, you have more securities because you have the solver competition. So even if the on-chain price has changed, the competition of the solver will guarantee that you get a realistic price for the trade that you have crafted. So with programmatic trades, essentially, we allow protocols to automatize their process while still being protected. We have a bunch of integrations as such. For example, Curve is automatically doing the harvesting and the conversion of their fees on CoW Protocol. Then what else? Then one big challenge that is coming up is to further decentralize the protocol. There is still a few components that are not fully decentralized yet. We purposefully decided on that because you always have this issue of if it's fully decentralized, then it's not as fast and efficient yet. And this is something where we're currently working on and like gradually decentralizing the protocol more and more. And then, yeah, we are also starting to look into cross-chain swaps. I think that's another exciting thing that people can like look out for. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of technical challenges. I think I could probably talk an hour about this.
Yeah, the cross-chain swaps are definitely an interesting area. So talk to us a little bit about some of the like milestones you feel like will be coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that kind of the community can look forward to.
Yes. So yeah, talking about cross-chain swaps. So the first implementation that we will do is not going to be that complex yet. So first, we just want to bring swap and bridge to users, essentially, allowing them to, within a single transaction, to be able to swap whatever assets they want to swap against, and then change the destination chain where they want to receive this. And this is kind of like our first step towards this cross-chain future. This will launch fairly soon this year. But the more interesting part then, I guess, is like really how do we envision cross-chain swaps in the future? And this is something where we will also leverage coincidence of once again. So essentially allowing this network of solvers to see maybe there's like a user order on Ethereum mainnet that has the perfect counterparty on Arbitrum. But in today's world, they wouldn't be able to be matched against each other. But in the future, ideally, we want to like really abstract away this like fragmented liquidity that exists across all the different chains, and then allow users to benefit from deeper liquidity pools from other networks without even being aware that the liquidity is coming from somewhere else. I think what will really disappear down the line is this network button that is showing you, oh, I'm currently trading on Ethereum, or I'm currently trading on Gnosis chain. But in the future, will just be, I have my crypto assets, I want to swap A for B. And then under the hood, our solver competition can facilitate the bridging, the swapping, the batching. But the user essentially just gets whatever they want with a single click. And yeah, that's a future that we are working towards. But of course, this will take some time. And then lastly, we are also currently working on CoW AMM. This is a product that we just recently launched in August. It is for liquidity providers. So far, CoW Protocol is just a DEX essentially, or has been just a DEX where your transactions are being forwarded to any other existing liquidity to find the best possible execution route whilst protecting the user. Now with CoW AMM, we are also offering native liquidity. And the reason we are adding this is that our mission has always been like to think about how do we protect the user? How do we provide products that ensure that navigating DeFi becomes easy and risk-free, as far as risk-freeness goes in DeFi today. And with CoW AMM, we are now adding a new product that allows also liquidity providers to be protected against a form of MEV, which in the particular form of MEV they are currently facing is called lever or LVR. And this comes from arbitrage bots always extracting value from their trades. But that's actually fairly easy, I would say, to explain. Like you have on Binance centralized exchange, you have a price, and then on-chain you have a price. And then on-chain the price only changes every 12 seconds, whereas on Binance, the price frequently constantly changes. So 12 seconds can actually make a huge difference in terms of the price of an asset. And the problem is then, if you're a liquidity provider on a traditional AMM, such as Uniswap, you always trade at a worse price because you're a passive liquidity provider. So you, based on the curve that your AMM is, you always trade up and down. So now an arbitrager sees, okay, the Uniswap price is outdated, but compared to the Binance price, so they can immediately trade against you. You sell at a worse price, and they take out the profit from you. And this is like something that actually makes liquidity provision very unattractive also. And the more users will get aware of this, the less users will be willing to provide liquidity. So we need a solution for the future that protects users against this liquidity loss. And this is why we have launched CoW AMM, which provides a solution for them. And we will launch a bunch of new features around CoW AMM also in the next few months to get people more excited to try it out.
Oh, absolutely. Some exciting things coming to the CoW ecosystem. Talk to us a little bit about where people can get involved with you specifically, where they can go try out and keep abreast of all of the new developments you guys are rolling out.
Yeah, we actually recently improved our website. It is very informative at this point. I don't think it was before, but now it's really good. Our Discord is really good to get in touch with the team for any type of questions. And then our developer docs for anybody who's interested to build on top of CoW Dao.
Hey, and we've got a bunch of builders in the audience. Actually, here's a question we love to ask, but sometimes I forget, is if you weren't building CoW, what do you think is a good area of could be DeFi, could be crypto ecosystem that you feel is like a good area for a startup?
You mean in the sense of like a completely new product, or in terms of building on top of the CoW ecosystem?
Maybe, yeah, it could be on the CoW ecosystem, or it could be like, you know what, I don't think people have done decentralized social media or decentralized identity well.
I think there's a bunch of things, but I'm also always skeptical on like what are actually good use cases. There's a lot of like creative ideas, but then when you think it through, it's like, does that really have to be decentralized? I don't think, like, I'm super bullish on decentralization, obviously, but I don't think everything has to be decentralized. What would be cool? I mean, for me, I'm like really in the finance world. But yeah, I think there's a bunch of like things that, I'm sorry, I can only think of examples to build on CoW.
I'll give, when we interviewed Bedrock, they talked about having a unified dashboard for liquid restaking tokens, so you could see risk exposure across different providers, which I thought was an interesting one. But a lot of guests have mentioned dashboards, like better tooling around dashboards. I guess DeFi Llama and Grow the Pie just aren't cutting it, but TBD, maybe you have a better idea. But finally, where can people kind of find you personally online? Like, what's your Twitter? What's the website address so they can go check it out?
Cool. Yeah, my Twitter is AnnaMSGeorge, and our website is CoW.fi.
Absolutely. Well, everyone go get involved with, obviously, CoW Protocol. I'm a huge fan of the name and the memes that come out of it, and as well as using it. So everyone go get involved with Anna, go get involved with CoW, and let's continue building the future of Web3.